Nathan rebukes David. The Lord sent Nathan to David. When he came to him, he said, "There were two men in a certain town, one rich and the other poor. The rich man had a very large number of sheep and cattle, but the poor man had nothing except one little ewe lamb he had bought. He raised it, and it grew up with him and his children. It shared his food, drank from his cup, and even slept in his arms. It was like a daughter to him. Now a traveler came to the rich man, but the rich man refrained from taking one of his own sheep or cattle to prepare a meal for the traveler who had come to him. Instead, he took the ewe lamb that belonged to the poor man and prepared it for the one who had come to him. David burned with anger against the man, and said to Nathan, "As surely as the Lord lives, the man who did this deserves to die. He must pay for that lamb 4 times over because he did such a thing and had no pity." Interesting how David's feeling right now. Let's continue to read. Then Nathan said to David, "You are the man. This is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says. I anointed you king over Israel, and I delivered you from the hand of Saul. I gave your master's house to you and your master's wives into your arms. I gave you the house of Israel and Judah. And if all this had been too little, I would have given you even more. Why did you despise the word of the Lord by doing what is evil in his eyes? You struck down Uriah the Hittite with the sword and took his wife to be your own. You killed him with the sword of the Ammonites. Now, therefore, the sword will never depart from your house, because you despised me and took the wife of Uriah the Hittite to be your own. This is what the Lord says: out of your own household, I am going to bring calamity upon you. Before your very eyes, I will take your wives and give them to one who is close to you, and he will lie with your wives in broad daylight. You did it in secret, but I will do this thing in broad daylight before all Israel." Then David said to Nathan, I have sinned against the Lord." Well, this is deep, right? Nathan was a prophet at the time. Was the one that told him what the Lord had said about how his line will be blessed, right? And now, because of David's actions, there still will be someone on the throne in the family of David. However, he's going to have some consequences now. In fact, all of this is prophecy right here. Take note of what Nathan just said. Before your very eyes, I will take your wives and give them to one who is close to you, and he will lie with your wives in broad daylight. So he's going to allow for someone to have their temptation and give into it and take action. Someone close to David. Think about it. Because of what David has done. And so Nathan's telling him. And now David is, whether it's coming to his senses or realizing or reflecting on what he did, because here he is starting to be a little self-righteous, right? Like thinking in a way that you would think, okay, that does sound good. He was ready to defend the poor man, but at the same time, he did exactly what this story, this made-up story, this tale that Nathan had told him, he did exactly that. David did exactly that. He took from somebody who was not the king, who was not someone that had that type of authority and sway. And he did exactly this. And again, it relates to the previous question. Do things like this happen today? Yes, unfortunately. And so don't think that just good things are going to come from it. You get your way. You may feel like you get your way in the end, but there may be consequences to it. What kind of thoughts or feelings come to your mind? How does it make you feel, and what does it make you think? Let's continue to read. Then David said to Nathan, I have sinned against the Lord. Nathan replied, the Lord has taken away your sin. You're not going to die, but because by doing this you have made the enemies of the Lord show utter contempt. The son born to you will die. After Nathan had gone home, the Lord struck the child that Uriah's wife had borne to David, and he became ill. David pleaded with God for the child. He fasted and went into his house and spent the nights lying on the ground. The elders of his household stood beside him to get him up from the ground, but he refused, and he would not eat any food with them. On the seventh day, the child died. That's a lot. David's servants were afraid to tell him that the child was dead, for they thought while the child was still living, we spoke to David, but he would not listen to us. How can we tell him the child is dead? He may do something desperate. David noticed that his servants were whispering among themselves, and he realized the child was dead. Is the child dead? He asked. Yes, they replied. He is dead. Then David got up from the ground after he had washed, put on lotions, and changed his clothes. He went into the house of the Lord and worshipped. Then he went to his own house, and at his request, they served him food and he ate. So he's come to realize that there was consequences. And this love child that he had fell ill and ended up passing away because of all of this action. When man takes action, when men take action, women take action, when we as a people take action, and it's not what the Lord wants us to do. Sorry, I just kicked everything. Without going to the Lord first, consequences can happen. Consequences can happen. The Lord can turn those things. Sometimes we're going to read further because there's things that can happen that the Lord can turn around too and still utilize those sinful actions, even in a big way, which we'll read on further. But there are consequences, and we hate being bad things happen. I just did it again. We hate when bad things happen. We hate when we feel like there's more punishment or it hurts more than it. But you never know. You may think that you did a small thing. You stole $5. You walked out of a store with lip balm or something. You may think you've done a small thing, but we don't look at the big picture about how it contributes. You may have not smiled at someone. That not smiling could have changed their mind for the day, and they may have not killed themselves or killed other people. You never know the smallest thing or the largest thing, what effects it has on life. And so taking a look at this story, there's a lot to it. There's a lot of different ways that you can look at it. And one way is this way, is that you never know what our sin and the full amount of consequences that can come. It may not even come back to you. It may just destroy all kinds of other things that you may or may not end up seeing. But it can happen. And then when it does happen to us, when we do start having bad things happen to us, you just want it to end. You just want it to be over with, and you feel like it's just too much. But in the term, what we may have done may have been way too much. It may have been even worse. It could have been a cascade waterfall effect, and we have no idea because we're too busy in ourselves and how we're feeling and how we want to be done with whatever it is, the negativity or the punishment. But we have no idea. And so these are things to think about. Bad things can happen, and when they do, especially if we had some role in it, or if we did something in the past, or did something and felt like we got away with it, maybe. Do you understand? We have to accept accountability too. We have to accept that bad things do happen and can happen. Sometimes you may not do anything and bad things will happen because there can be a test. But in this story, we're talking about things about our own actions, your actions, my actions, and how they can lead to discipline, how they can lead to bad things happening, and how to take responsibility, how to turn around and say, like David said, I have sinned. Pray to the Lord, I have sinned, I have done this. Please forgive me. I understand I still may have consequences, or I might be going through them or such, but I know through you there's hope. And I know through you, through time and time again, people in the Bible turning back to you, ourselves included, you you will uplift us. You will take that yoke off of us. You will take that heavy burden, and you will allow for us to come through and to understand and learn from this. So there's a lot here. What kind of thoughts or feelings come to your mind? How does it make you feel, and what does it make you think?